Hi, everyone. Happy new moon in the sign of Cancer. It's exact on July 5th. Got a podcast with more astrological details. I'll put a link to my blog where I talk about some of the aspects, including this aspect that I wanted to do a video on because I'm starting to get social media all together. And this is a pretty big deal to have Sirius conjunct the moon and the sun during this particular new moon, which is on both ends, shouldered by two full moons in the sign of Capricorn, when Pluto is going to be activating this next full moon. And Pluto is the one that's leading us towards the age of Aquarius as it's shouldering in and out of, or let's say pivoting in and out of Aquarius and Capricorn. But let me go ahead and share my screen here, and I have this image in my blog, but I wanted to give us a second to kind of unpack what's going on here. And so I talk in the podcast about how, to the Egyptians, Sirius was the most important star. The goddess Sopdet that we meet in the podcast is the embodiment of Sothis or Sirius. There's many cultures that have held that Sirius was a very important star. I mentioned in the podcast the Dogon tribe, but also the Mayans, also native tribes. Like Sirius is kind of a big deal. And one of the ways that you could possibly think about why this is a big deal, take it or leave it, is that our sun, so Sirius is a binary star. There's Sirius A, which we're speaking of right here, that's pictured. But there's also a super tiny Sirius B and an imploded Sirius C. So when we're talking about this Sirius, they all kind of move together. But in the grander scheme of things, there's a possibly, take it or leave it, binary relationship between our sun, the center of our solar system, and Sirius, which is, I would offer, the star that is downloading intelligence from the central sun. So if we think about the idea of different iterations of suns, and that there ultimately is a central sun, Sirius's role is to help our sun get information to deliver to us within the solar system. So it follows that they're in this binary star system. The idea is that, and this makes perfect sense, the further these two are away from each other, the more time and the more static and the more distant the connection. If we think about being able, if a moon is really close, for example, in astrology, it's known to be a potent dose of whatever Luna is delivering to us. So if Sirius gets close, we head towards ages of enlightenment. And this isn't the age of enlightenment that we know of. These cycles are very, very, very large cycles. And I'm going to get to another image here, but just to consider that there's this concept called the Great Year or the Yuga cycle. And in this image shows that we're kind of at a place where the sun and Sirius are starting to come closer and closer together, which is why I find it highly fortuitous that Sirius is showing up right now as Pluto is pivoting out of Capricorn and into Aquarius, because we are headed toward the age of Aquarius. Let me share the next image for you here. Let me get this up, because this, I think, kind of brings us potentially full circle. So down in this bottom left quadrant here, I'm not quite sure how old this image is. I want to say it's less than 5 years old. And we're talking about this cycle of time. These are 24,000 year cycles of time, 12,000 years descending, where humanity is losing its connection, and 12,000 years ascending equals 24,000 years of time. We are right here. And if you see what this says we're headed out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. We're not quite there yet. Pluto heading into Aquarius is the first sign that we can really start to, or the energetic that we can really start to work with as we're preparing. Pluto, the planet of death and transformation, is the perfect one to go first, to help pave that way so that we can have enlightenment of a different sort, in unity consciousness, ascension. And it's interesting, if we look at the age of Pisces, some would argue that Jesus was part of the activation of the age of Pisces, and his symbol of the fish signified that. Take everything what I'm saying, or take it or leave it, right? But this cycle here is, in theory, also can be overlaid into the binary relationship between Sirius and the sun. So when we're these upper areas, Satya and Treta, those are times, and this is not linear, but this is when Sirius and the sun are very, very, very close. If we think about that, also, if we think about the last image we had, it was a circle over circle known as a vesica piscis, also could be called vesica Pisces. The time when they're really, really close together and where the circles overlap is the Satya and Treta yugas, more or less. And then these ones down here, we're coming out of the Kali Yuga. We're already out of the Kali Yuga. That's when Sirius and the sun are very far away. So I find it just really comforting is the wrong word, but inspiring that Sirius is showing up every year. As I mentioned, I'm going to do a podcast on the helical rising of Sirius, or I'll include it in a podcast which happens in August. That's something that works like clockwork. This particular activation with this particular new moon, with Capricorn on both shoulders, and we're really in the shadow of Capricorn with Pluto in its final excavation phase of Capricorn. So this new moon is, I would offer, an activation. I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to say, thank you guys for checking this out. And I hope that if this is at all interesting to you, I'll put a link where you can check out the podcast and my blog. I'll also put a link where you can sign up for my email list, where you get every new moon and every full moon, I send out an email about anything else that I'm doing besides the podcast. Sometimes I do online classes or free gatherings. So check those out and have a blessed and wonderful new moon.